Our theme of this conference is future citizens. And as a career coach, I think that one of the most powerful ways that we can create a better future is in how we rethink our careers. Now, you may not know this, but right now, millions of people around the world are quitting their jobs. And in the media, this is being called the Great Resignation and the Great Reshuffle. But I think there's something deeper going on here. And I think it's been going on since before the pandemic, whereas a lot of the news says this is happening because of the pandemic. And so I'd like to give you all a little insight into one of the things that's contributing to this, other than the pandemic. And I need a little bit of help from you all on this. I'm a little bit nervous, a bit shaky right now, so please do help me with this. I'd like to ask all of those sitting in the purple seats if you could stand up. If you're sat on the floor, on the normal chairs, you can just remain seated. But if you could all just stand up for me. Thank you so much. And I'd invite everyone in the room to just take a little look around at how many people are stood up in this room. Because the number of people standing up right now represents roughly about 80% of our audience. And this is the number of people who in the workplace are either actively disengaged or not engaged in their work life. So that means there's a lot of potential going to waste. Only about 20% of people, those sitting towards the front, are actually engaged in their work, involved, and actively participating in it. So thank you for the help. You can take a seat now. There is so much potential that is going to waste. And I'm really curious about why that is. And why is it that so many of us perhaps are not enjoying our work? And why is it that a global pandemic has suddenly made so many people do something about it? So in my view, the pandemic has been more of a catalyst than a cause. The pandemic has shown us new ways of working, or perhaps pushed us into them if we knew about them already. It's given us time for our passions, our interests, our hobbies. Hands up anyone who got involved in baking in the last few years. And, you know, there's nothing quite like the threat of serious illness and death to make us rethink what's important to us. So I don't believe people are just resigning or reshuffling. I believe there is a big rethink happening, and that's why I'm calling this the Great Career Rethink. I think it's more fundamental, because we live in a world now where we no longer have a job for life. Those days are gone. We are constantly rethinking our careers on a regular basis. We can't predict accurately the jobs of the future right now. We don't know what jobs will be needed 20 years from now. We have new ways of working emerging, many ways that we haven't even considered often. And we're told so often that when we start a degree, it might be out of date before we've even graduated. And then we have growing global challenges that we need to address. And so as a career coach, I speak to people about these issues every single day. I speak to young people at university, and I speak to career changers in private practice. And one of the things that I hear over and over again is people say to me, you know, Holly, I just really want to be helpful, and I really want to make a difference. And sometimes with a little more sadness, you know, I just feel like I have so much more potential, and I just really want to make a bigger impact, if only I knew how. And through having these conversations, I've realized that there are 3 ways that I see people making decisions, 3 ways of thinking about their careers. And these 3 ways we're often doing in an unconscious way. We're not conscious that these are the ways that we're thinking. And part of my job is often sharing with people, hey, have you thought about this in a different way? And so I'm going to share with you today those 3 different ways that you could think, so that maybe if you didn't know they all existed, you might be able to use some of them in your careers, whether that's your school and university career or transitioning and beyond into the world of work. So the first way of thinking that I see people using is what I like to call protector thinking. So protector thinking is all about how can I stay safe? And what we do is we put up a great big shield in front of us and we say, this is great because it keeps all of the scary stuff in life out. It keeps out the need to change, the need to cope with risk, perhaps challenges and pressures. And hey, there is nothing wrong with having a shield. In fact, I think sometimes we definitely need to have our shields up. But the problem comes when we hold that shield up for so long that we're no longer looking at where we're going. We're blinded by it. And all we do is move away from the things that scare us. Instead, we have to learn to lower that shield and look out to the horizon, to look over it and say, if this isn't what I want to experience, what might I want to experience instead? Now, my confession is I have used this type of thinking a lot in my life. And particularly when I was younger. I came from a single-parent home. It was very poor. There was a lot of chaos. And so one of my big motivators was, I really don't want to have that kind of life. And protector thinking definitely helped me move away from it. But what I forgot to do was to look over my shield and take a little bit of responsibility and control of my direction. And when we're in protector mode and we don't realize it, we miss that opportunity for new experiences and for choosing our path forward. And so we know we're in protector mode when we're saying things like, I just feel really hopeless. I just don't think this is a choice. And I'm really anxious and fearful of this. And we know we're in protector mode when we're saying, I don't really want to ask for help right now because, oh my God, what will people think? And will people judge me and shame me? Will I shame myself? And so when we bring that shield down, we create new opportunities for ourselves. And in my life, I went to school, I worked hard, I ended up at university. I was on track for my dream to get away from where I'd come from, to do things differently and better. And I was approaching graduation. My 14-year-old self had decided I was going to be an engineer. But now it was time to graduate, and all of a sudden, I needed a job. And I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't really know what I'm doing. And I was too scared to tell anyone that. And I thought, I'm just going to look at all the jobs that are out there. And this is where I started the second type of thinking. The second type of thinking is what I call conformity thinking. So what I did was I looked at all of the opportunities out there and I said, who have I got to be? What boxes have I got to tick to get that great job? And this is a phenomenal strategy. It can get you absolutely brilliant jobs. And what we do in that moment is we make an active choice, consciously or not, to decide that I am going to fit the mold that is expected of me. It might be the corporate mold, it might be your family mold of expectations, or it might be the things that you think society tells you makes you successful. It may not be your own definition of success. And so when we do this conformity approach, this conformity thinking, what we end up doing sometimes is forgetting who we are. It's a great strategy as long as there's some of us in it. But when we conform to fit in and we change the fundamentals of who we are, it's like saying, I'm a square peg, and I'm going to chisel off my corners to fit in that round hole. But when we chisel parts of ourselves away, it hurts. It really hurts. And so, again, I did this, and it is a good strategy. There are lots of positive things that can come from this. But at the same time, I landed the amazing graduate job that my 14-year-old self had dreamed of. I had more money than she could imagine. I had status. People say, ooh, and ooh, when you're an engineer. And I had training and progression and security, all the things that so many people crave. I was so privileged. And yet, inside, I felt like I had all of this external success, but inside I was lacking it. I felt unfulfilled. I wanted to offer more, but I didn't know how. And this is where the third type of thinking comes in really useful. So the third type of thinking is what I call connected thinking. This is where we say, I am me. We think about, what am I good at? What do I value? What am I interested in? But then we also say, hang on, I'm connected. I'm deeply interdependent with all of the systems around me, my planet, the labor market, my education, everything else. And we say, what kind of challenges might I be good at and might I be interested in addressing? And the sweet spot is when we use both of those. Because in the other ways of thinking, we're either protecting ourselves or we're forgetting ourselves. And this is how we connect to a greater picture and a new horizon. Now, I didn't know how to do this. And for those that like some practical how-tos, I have 3 questions that helped me with this. The first question is, who am I? What do I value? What am I good at naturally? What experiences would I like to have? That's setting goals. And then we can ask, what gives meaning to my life? What is meaningful to me may not be what's meaningful to you. For some people, it's family. For some people, it's a sense of achievement. For other people, it's knowing that they just did that one little bit that they could do in that moment today. And the third question is, how can I use all of my natural self, who I really am, to contribute to society? And when we ask ourselves these deeper kinds of questions, instead of that traditional question of what do I want to be when I grow up, we open up more opportunities for ourselves. We shift our emphasis from protecting ourselves, from trying to fit in, to a new set of questions. We shift from protector and conformity into connected mode. And what we say to ourselves is, how can I be more? What do I need to develop in myself in order to make a contribution that is personally meaningful to me and offers a contribution in the world? And so I believe that when we do connected thinking, when we're conscious of this model of thinking, that we have more of a chance of being fulfilled in our working lives. Maybe that 80% of people who are disengaged or not engaged in their work every day can become 80% of people who are really powerfully making the difference that matters to them and enjoying and being fulfilled in doing it as they solve those global challenges that we face today. So I'll give you one last story because this was a major turning point for me. As an engineer, I used to go into my office and sit next to a guy called Frank. Frank was amazing, the font of wisdom for me. He said to me one morning, he was retired, I should add. He was still working, doing a job that he seemed to love. And he said to me this morning, you know, Holly, when you get to my age, you never really regret the things you've done. You only regret the things you never had the courage to do. And in that moment, I knew that I needed to change my career. And I would say to you, which rethinking method do you need to use in order to be most proud of your future self? Thank you.